this is how multi-talented this guy is.
Well, if you've heard the beginning of this podcast, that is my band.
Is it really?
Yes.
Love that.
I'm Arizona Family political editor Dennis Welch.
Dennis, fake news Welch. Try to tell the truth.
And this is the Politics Unplugged podcast.
Dennis, if you have a problem with substance abuse, I am more than willing to talk to you anytime you need.
Welcome back to another edition of Politics Unplugged, the podcast edition. And I am honored, and it's great this week to be joined by local news renaissance man, Steve Goldstein, longtime host, local NPR K-Jazz. He's got a podcast going now. I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm so glad to kind of turn the tables on you this week.
Now, can I say for just to anyone listening that I have been a huge fan of yours for years? You know that.
I'm a bigger fan of you for years.
You know that. You know that. My favorite part is when someone would come on our show on a Friday and say, "Oh, by the way, Dennis is mad at you guys because you called me first." Oh, okay, sorry about that. So I'm wondering if that happened this week, where you were just like, "Oh my God," like the people are on 9 other shows. I got to call the guy who's in semi-retirement to come out and gab with me for a little bit. So anyway, I appreciate it because I love you. So thanks.
Yes, I remember back in the day. I was always quite pissed at you and Brody.
That's right. I heard that from more than one guest.
It was my anger at you and Brody that drove me all these years.
No, because these guests would say, "Hey, I was on Politics Unplugged a few weeks ago." I said, "Oh, great. How's Dennis doing?" Well, he was doing better a few weeks ago because I was supposed to be on his show this week, but you guys called first, so yeah. All right, so I can burn us in effigy. No problem, right?
No, I just love because you used to have me on your show.
But then we had to get permission once you became a TV star.
Yeah. Anyway, I had to would go on your show to do the news recap, but this week I get to turn the tables and do the news recap with you.
Okay.
I'm so stoked about this.
Yeah, and if there are problems with this, you can just go to old shows and just splice them in, right, Colin? Is that right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So remember, in the great words of longtime Capitol scribe Howie Fisher, short, outrageous sound bites would do.
I will do my best, yes.
So let's start with the big news of the week. Donald Trump back in town. First time in Arizona. It comes a week after getting rung up, convicted on 34 felony counts related to hush money payments to a porn star.
Yeah.
Average.
Are they all stars, by the way?
Yeah, they're all. I don't know.
Okay, I don't know if they're actresses or stars, but yeah. A lot of performing going on.
I'll let that one lie there.
As
Anyway,
they do in that profession.
Yes, sometimes not. Let's talk a little bit about your top takeaways from this. I mean, obviously, I don't know if you watched the whole speech, but
Not the whole speech, no.
some of the it's even more. I think can be more informative because if you're just looking at the coverage of some of this to see, because I think that's how a lot of viewers or a lot of voters out there get a lot of their media information, because he comes here at 2:00 in the afternoon. I don't know about you, but like most people are fucking working at about that time.
How about the poor people standing in line?
Yes.
How many people got taken away because they had collapsed?
I don't know.
The hottest day of the year.
I heard it was quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was out there. No sympathy for me.
No.
I was out there.
Yeah. That's like a play on the Stones? Are you considered the devil if you're in the media? No sympathy for D. Welch, the devil?
No sympathy for D. Welch, man. I was out there. Where's the sympathy for me, man? I was out there, getting questions, committing journalism, man. Capital J journalism out there.
Enemy of the state,
I know, right there. So
I promise I won't turn the table on you here, but I do want to ask you this, though, since you are actively involved in coverage and I'm not anymore. Do you think that a 2:00 in the afternoon event on a Thursday should have been covered as much as it was? Is it just because Trump is so former president charismatic, or is it about filling time in some ways?
Well, it's hard. He is the presumptive Republican nominee. He's been driving the news for a long time now. And man, it was a week after he was convicted on 35. I think all that kind of folds into this. The one thing I think about this for a second, because it hit me the other day when I was getting ready to cover this, is the Golden Escalator ride, right? Yeah. Was in June 2015, 9 years ago. We've been doing this story for almost a decade.
Yeah.
A decade. And it just seems like once a presidential cycle or something like that. But it's been almost 10 years.
Yeah, and it doesn't change much. I mean, we saw him out there. Was that officially making out with Arpaio, or is that just a peck? I couldn't really tell. It was a little strange.
It was.
91-year-old candidate for Fountain Hills mayor got on the stage.
Look, man, anybody pardons you or me, I'm, look, the person who pardons you is like, you owe him a kiss.
Did Trump actually say, though, I don't usually kiss men? I saw that on X. Was that actually?
I can't remember. I was, obviously I was watching the speech.
And that was not the most important part of the event, yes.
Yeah. So, but for almost a decade, we've been watching this. Again, not much has changed. His supporters are like, it's intense. They are enthusiastic about it. The only thing that's really changed is the size of the venues. I mean, he used to pack the Veterans Memorial Coliseum, and now we're talking mega churches. It's still a big venue, but it's not quite the same of what it was. But like, what struck you from his speech this week in this all important swing state of it?
Well, I feel like he says a lot of the same things over and over again, and I don't want to say what poll I heard, but I heard a poll last night, earlier today. I know people will listen to this at various times. So the week that he was in town, I heard this poll that had him at 51% in Arizona. Is it possible that Biden or Trump's going to get 51% in Arizona? That hit me as inaccurate. These guys are battling for 49. Dennis, I think the thing keeps coming back to me on the way Trump is. There's no question the guy still has his charisma. He still knows how to talk to a crowd. But the whole tic-tac thing, I feel like his material's getting worse.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because he's in even more of the glass enclosed box that he was before. Because if we go back to 2015, really nobody thought he was going to win. Presumably he didn't even think he was going to win. And then the first couple of years, okay, he had so many supporters, so many people with him. I feel like since Jan 6 or since the loss, most of the people who come out for him, whether it's the My Pillow guy or whatever, or the Turning Point folks or Joe Arpaio, they fall into a pretty obvious category. And I think he's speaking, if I were advising his campaign, which they'd kick me right out the first day, I think he's speaking too much to the same old people. And in order to really win, I mean, sure, Biden's old and all these things. I was struck by the fact that the messaging didn't seem special enough to me. It's still like they're still relying on this guy 10 years later. 10 years ago, you could say he was, pretty vibrant. Now he's got more energy than Biden, but does he really sound that? So to me, it was just very much like, I'm speaking to the same group. I'm happy to be in this crowd. And not much, there wasn't much takeaway for me that was unique. It was just, here's this guy again.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, since he is from the TV world, I mean, reality TV star, it seems like part of the show has lost its energy after so many seasons.
Yeah, they need to get a new character. Maybe that'll be the VP candidate or Oliver from Brady Bunch.
Yeah, but that's the other thing. He doesn't like people who outshine him. I've heard people tell me, again, this is not source reporting, hard journalism that you and I are both known for. By the way,
especially you.
Especially you. Yeah. But like they've said, people have said like one of the strikes against Carrie Lake from being a VP pick was that she is better at doing Trump than Donald Trump anymore, and he does not like people who takes attention away from him.
You can't question how well she communicates.
Yeah.
So I think that, well, if we look at the candidates we're hearing about, not to bore people with vice presidential lists, because as a geek I enjoy that, a lot of people don't.
Well, people who are listening to this show, I'm thinking are like, hey, let's geek out, let's talk VP, baby.
Well, I mean, could anyone have been duller with a kind of a resume than Mike Pence was? I mean, I don't think so.
Well, was anybody legit who was willing to take that job at that point? Let's be real. Let's go back to 2016.
Can you even remember who was on the list?
I can't.
I can't either.
But was Marco Rubio, little Marco, going to be after being insulted by him for that long?
Jeb exclamation point. Yeah.
Jeb. It connotes excitement. That was the explanation. Like, why the exclamation point? It connotes.
I thought you were going back to your print years right there with the connotes. That was nice. Connotes. Yeah. Well, but Rubio's apparently on the current list, though.
I don't get that.
I don't either.
There's a lot you just have.
Can I say something morbid, though? Because we keep talking about, or the general public or the general media talks about how old Biden is. And obviously, he's older than Trump, but Trump's no kid. Is in a morbid sense, do you think we could find a surprise candidate like a Rubio that's like, I might actually be president in 2 years. So, okay, sounds pretty good.
I mean, is it in the back of people's minds? Sure. I mean, it's been an issue.
Yeah.
People are making it an issue. Like, it's a fact of life. We get older. And these are not young men anymore.
Except for Benjamin Button. Yeah, that guy was Asian in reverse, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. It was
It's weird. I don't
It was
know.
a curious case,
Yeah.
I heard. But like, but yeah, I mean, it's a thing. You know, it's not something I'm comfortable talking about with politics. But like, it's age has been made a part of this issue and of this presidential campaign, and it can't really be ignored. And it's like, look, they're not young men.
No, they're not. They're not young men.
And is that an issue? You're looking to be commander in chief. You want somebody who exudes some sort of strength and confidence and stuff like that. Because I've always argued that and agreed with the idea that the presidential race is a unique vote in America. It's less about policy and more about gut emotion.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's fair. Yeah.
and so that's why I think these kinds of things kind of do matter.
So does the public get jacked up over Doug Burgum, governor of North Dakota, being the running mate? I mean, the guy's he actually has hair reminiscent of Rick Renzi. It's pretty sweet. I, of course, am jealous of that hair, but whatever.
Me too. Me too. I don't know. I mean, Colin was pretty excited to dig up on Bergen, you know, and he made the
true?
list. No, I'm just throwing Colin under the bus at this point.
Not true. Not true. I can vouch. Not true.
Colin, you let's see, you're more of a Vivek Ramaswamy fan. Also on the short list.
Vivek,
Oh,
like
sorry.
cake.
Is
I
it
was
really?
sternly corrected one time by one of his people.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Vivek,
Okay.
like cake.
You know, I'd love to see in there, which we know is not going to be in the mix, is our mutual friend, because we both talked to him, Chris Christie. That would have been fun.
Yeah, that would have been something. You know, too bad he killed somebody by closing down a bridge.
Well, and too bad Trump almost killed him by giving him COVID, apparently.
Oh yeah,
That's what Christie says, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, I still think the worst thing he did was he closed down the beach, and then there was pictures of him just laying out on that beach or something.
I know.
That was bad.
This is a point where I don't make the easy comment about, you know.
Oh yeah, let's not go there.
Yep,
We won't.
that's a personal attack, which is not good.
We don't have to go there.
Nope.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think like his visit was a game changer. It got a lot of media attention. I don't think people needed to be reminded that he's running for. So I'm just kind of wondering like what the whole point of the whole thing was.
Yeah, it's swing state, as you said. I mean, we're in the situation where he probably just wants to double down. I didn't see anybody. I was wondering if there'd be someone there to really put up a decent protest. Was there anything out there?
There were a few people out there like Vets Against Trump.
Okay.
I heard someone retell a story secondhand. I did not see that there was a bit of a confrontation with them, so people got in their face.
Okay.
Did not see that. Can't vouch for that. You know, was it that, or was it the fact it was like 110 freaking degrees out there? Like everybody's tempers are about this short. You know, there was a guy out there that was just at one of the entrances, just an anti-Trump guy and just trolling everybody. You know, he was just like making promises, like, you know, for $50,000, like, you know, he'll make sure that Trump comes here and shows us his mushroom. And I was just like, yeah, I'm like, I go up to the guy and go like, dude, so what's been the response been like? And he goes, oh, it's been pretty negative.
At least he was honest about it. Yeah.
You think, dude? Because I think like Trump is like nationwide. We've been comparing Trump campaigns to Arpaio for years. Speaking of Arpaio, and I just feel like it's still that way. I don't know. I mean, who's on the fence with Donald Trump? It felt like Arpaio back in 2016, right?
Yeah.
Did you really have undecided voters when it came to Arpaio?
Wasn't our
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like you were one way or the other on the guy. You would run through a brick wall for the guy,
Yeah.
or you wouldn't walk over to piss on him if he was on fire. That's the kind of like how polarized.
By
it was.
2016 for sure, and not to take us too far back in political history, but we
Yeah.
both remember J.D. Hayworth.
Oh,
and I knew a lot of Republicans who would have considered themselves conservatives, but they got to a point they were like, you know what, Harry Mitchell, he's a little too left for me, but yeah, he was mayor of Tempe, he's okay. And rather than voting for Hayworth again, boom, and that's what Penzone slid into. But is there somebody? I mean, there clearly wasn't in the Republican field that was going to take on Trump to do the same thing. So I don't know if there are enough people who are sick of him, but I mean, does 34 out of 34 matter to even 0.5%, 1% of Republicans in this state, and then they kind of flip it a little bit?
yeah. I mean, my conversations with this supporters again, they're like, look, I am cognizant of the fact like when you go out to a Trump rally, you might as well go out to church on Sunday and ask people what they think of Jesus. Shocked. They all love him. Like, you go out to this, like, shocked, like they all love Donald Trump, but it didn't matter to them, and these aren't the people that show up to these rallies. These aren't the people he's trying to win over.
No, they're one. They're
one. It's a good media. It's good media attention for him, and he gets to come out and he loves to grieve, not grieve, but air his grievances.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, was there a tailgate out there? Because that's one of the things I keep missing. That you and I think about, like football on a Saturday or Sunday morning. Yeah. People go out there. They got their grills. I know it's too hot here, but is there anything?
I didn't see anything. You see some of the booths set up there selling Trump swag. It is what it is. Again, for 10 years we've been covering the story and it hasn't really
Thank
changed.
you for reminding us. It is I wasn't thinking 10 years. It is 10 years.
So let's talk about some other things that happened this week. Speaking of Trump, fake electors, Jake Hoffman, he went, and this was all drowned out because hours before Trump hit the stage out at the megachurch, Hoffman entered a not guilty plea for his role in the so-called fake electors scandal. Your thoughts on, we have a sitting lawmaker, 2 sitting senators now, and Anthony Kern, Jake Hoffman, who have been indicted on multiple criminal counts.
Well,
we're trying to overturn the election. And Jake Hoffman is somebody who's going to be instrumental in the upcoming budget negotiations. He's the leader of the Freedom Caucus down there. Yeah. So your thoughts on this?
Well, and work with me on the ruling as well this week of the judge with Katie Hobbs trying to bypass the Senate. I mean, Jake Hoffman had certainly involvement in that and trying to make sure she couldn't get her agency heads.
Yeah,
and
we're going to talk a little bit about that because Governor Hobbs had a really terrible week. Yeah. There's no way to talk. There's no way to couch that and pay to play and like, oh, you broke the law. But like getting back to Hoffman, I mean, he is a significant player down there, right?
Absolutely. And I don't want it to sound like a former public radio person because, as you know, and I mean this very sincerely, even on an awesome, fun podcast like this, I always try to be down the middle, always. Yeah. But I mean, Hoffman, Anthony Kern, I mean, these are. I don't really understand why there isn't more backlash against them. I'm not going to overanalyze the GOP folks. I apologize for this, but there are plenty of conservative folks. Can I drift off and briefly? I think about like Andy Biggs in Congress. I mean, like Christine Jones lost him by what, 50 votes?
I think it was 24.
Okay, Christine Jones is no lefty. We know that very well.
Oh yeah,
but I think Christine Jones lives in reality. Wouldn't want to overturn the government.
Christine Jones certainly lives in reality.
Yeah. So and when I think about Hoffman, Kern, I'll put them in the same kind of. Kern's running for Congress, for God's sake. So when I think about the power that someone like Hoffman has, I have to admit I'm baffled. I know our primary system is backed up. I know it's weird. Maybe we'll see something on the ballot in November. It just strikes me that there's not more backlash to that.
Yeah.
Because he's he has a lot of influence down there. He's not a backbencher. He's like it doesn't make me feel good about what's going on at the ledge.
No, it is weird. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of any backlash whatsoever about this. I mean, in Twitter circles, people are outraged on Twitter.
Yeah. That is, it's Twitter's this against this constantly.
I know. God, we're running.
Your X photo is pretty cool, though.
What's that?
Your X photo is pretty cool, though.
Oh yeah, it's me. Just
not your X's photo. Your photo on X.
Oh, my photo on X. Yeah, it's me looking at something. Yeah,
but just looking like energetic, looking a little bit. All the President's Men plus Lou Grant. I'm liking that.
Fucking Lou Grant.
Can I have a sip of this? I'm sorry.
Yeah, $100 for anybody who gets that reference because you and I are like, we before the show we were making Reggie Jackson references. We are of an age.
I'm a child of the 70s and 80s. Dennis is, much hipper and younger than I am. But anyway.
God.
I actually had a woman at Fry's, the cashier, the other day. So I'm just for full disclosure, I'm 53 years old. Mm-hmm. And apparently at Fry's you get the discount if you're 55 or over. Mm-hmm. The woman was very gentle with me, though. She said, "Sir, I don't think you're 55. Am I right?" I said, No, but I'm a little younger than that, but thanks for asking. Why did you ask? Well, the senior discount's at 55. I said, whoa, well, then I'm 55. I thought it was like 70, but 55, I'll take 10% off.
Bring it on, babe.
Inflation, Dennis. I'll take 10%. Right. Yeah.
Thanks, Biden.
Yeah, exactly. I love the gas pump thing. Joe did this.
Oh, God.
Joe's with OPEC? I didn't realize that.
Remember when you could go through life avoiding politics? It finds you everywhere, even at the gas pump with those.
Even
signs.
the Caitlin Clark stuff and the WNBA. That's
Don't get me started on my girl Caitlin Clark.
she's awesome. Yeah,
Iowa Hawkeye, right here.
that's what I wanted. I wanted to feed you there. Come on.
Born and raised.
That was a Caitlin Clark like assist right there, dropping some dimes to D. Welch.
I just love people like coming to her defense who she didn't want or needs their defense. Freaking sports, man.
I know.
Anyway, let's talk a little bit about Governor Hobbs's no good, terrible week so far. So she wasn't able to get her agency heads in place, installed, because they had to go through the Senate Committee on Confirmations, executive appointments,
which was created just because the Democratic governor's office. Yeah.
Yes. So she installed some people, appointed them. The court said you broke the law with that. Is there a way for this to get resolved? I mean, you don't go to jail for breaking this law, but it's but like.
Well, can I just sound too much like a pragmatist here?
Yeah.
So I don't. I guess I understand the politics of it, Dennis. I mean, politics unplugged. I guess I understand where Warren Peterson's coming from, because he wants to, he's Senate president. But it's at the same time, here's Mr. Naivete coming out. Isn't it better for the state? I think back when Flake was in the Senate, he said, I don't love Obama's folks, but you know what? He's president. McCain would say the same thing. For the most part, unless it's some egregious nominee. Let's go with it. And I kind of think I have no evidence to say, the state's being hurt by this. I mean, it's mostly bureaucracy anyway. How much does the agency head matter? But yeah, I wish there were a way around it, because I think it's better if we're going to have. I think there are a lot of the more conservative Republicans in the state. They don't want there to be no government, but they want there to be as small G as possible. Maybe a lot of us want that. But at some point, do you go from big G to small G overnight? You can't. You have to make some transitions, and I think that's kind of what we're messed with here.
Yeah, and I think, friend of the show, Doug Cole, we both know Doug Cole over at High Ground. He would say, like, the effects on things like this aren't seen overnight. When you don't have permanent agency heads, it hurts recruitment, it hurts retention. Those are the kinds of things that may not appear right away, but down the road, you could see that. So we'll have to wait and see with that. And I'm wondering if something gets done in budget negotiations this year or something like that. But, it didn't stop there with Governor Hobbs. She's also a great article, great reporting by a friend of the pod here, Arizona Republic reporter Stacey Barchanger, about raising some questions about a healthcare provider who got some reimbursements that other people weren't getting. And there's questions now that the AG is going to be looking into, like, was this some sort of pay to place kind of scandal? Yeah.
Well, I mean, that makes me feel good about the idea that, unlike our federal system, we don't have appointed people in the Attorney General's office. This is a separate office, which is good. But I thought we had to wait for Terry Goddard's measure to go through to stop dark money, to not get to hear about stuff like this. Isn't this a pattern that we see when it comes to donations? It just, you feel like, we've talked about this before. Whether it's agency heads or head coach. You mentioned Joe Arpaio. I mean, did Arpaio know all the stuff that was going on in his office? I suspect Governor Hobbs knew what was going on here, but whether she did or didn't, there's got to be that
accountability.
There has to be, because how much of life is perception, Dennis? Well, like, is it almost 100%?
Yeah.
So whether she did something wrong or not, it looks like you did. You have to avoid these things. It looks like total conflict of interest. Looks like you're giving quid pro quo kind of stuff. It just looks terrible.
I will point out, though, it's interesting Republicans are reacting like this. I think we both agree, like, you want to hold people accountable for this. But when Doug Ducey would hand out no-bid contracts, like, there was a $1.3 million no-bid contract during COVID that was handed out to one of his political people.
Yeah.
Where was the accountability there? Where were the calls for investigations there, and the committee hearings and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I mean, right. But is it, I don't know, does it make our job more fun?
It does.
That there's so much hypocrisy? Because then I feel like less of a hypocrite. I'm like, well, look at them.
Well,
what do you mean I'm a hypocrite? It's not as bad as what they did. No one's giving me hundies. That's $100 bills, folks.
Yes.
Yeah. not a Hyundai like Tucson or something like that.
Yeah, it works well in real life if you act like the lawmakers there.
Exactly.
It's like those old drug ads. Like, where'd you learn to do this stuff? I learned it from watching you.
Well, what about these folks need to balance their budgets? So do we. You guys don't balance any budget, and a lot of people in real life don't either. So what are you talking
They
about?
balance a budget on hopes and prayers. Right. I mean, really, that's what it is every year. It's like, well, we think we're going to make this amount of money this year. Not sure. Well, let's go ahead and do this.
Well, because we're all optimistic, right? Sort of.
I don't know.
It's going to get.
I don't know
better
where
next
we're
time.
at anymore in this
I'm
country.
not sure either. Well,
But hey, before I let you go, though, I do want to ask you. You've been doing some really good moderating some debates.
thanks. Yeah.
Really good job. I wanted to get your thoughts on what that's like. Now is it you've been doing this for a while. Has it changed over the years? Like like these types of debates. You've been doing the primary debates, which I always find to be very interesting. They can be a pain in the ass, but they can also be really feisty because there are normally very little differences in a primary debate. Absolutely, everybody's like fighting over who can be as far right or far left, so they get really personal, and that's where it gets spicy. But what's it like now? Like hosting these debates now? Is it just the whole picture? Compared to when you first started doing this?
I'm amazed at how much the format still stays the same. So one of the fun things about the ones I'm doing now, as opposed to the ones I did on KJazz or the ones when I've helped Ted out on Channel 8, is that we actually, to some extent, are allowed to if I'm asking a question to Dennis Welch and you've got two opponents on stage with you. If I'm asking the question to you, I give you 2 minutes. But what we've tried to do, and I've pushed for this, and a lot of folks wanted to do this as well, if the conversation's going, let's just keep going. Like it doesn't need to be, okay, you get a 1 minute response. And I think that's good because I think it gets to be too much where we're just like, okay, 59 seconds, you basically said nothing, you're done. Let's actually try to have a conversation. But
it puts accountability on the candidate too. Like
hopefully have some depth to this. Maybe.
Yeah, and if you want to be part of the conversation, jump in there, man. Like Ben Toma in was the CD8 primary debate.
Yeah.
Part of the criticism from him coming out of this, he didn't say much. He wasn't really engaging as much as some of the other candidates were. And look, you were letting everybody speak.
Well, and that's tough too because there were so many people. There's so many people on stage with that, and then we had the CD1, the 6 Democrats on stage. I would have loved to have had an hour and a half with them because they all wanted to say things, and there was starting to be a little disagreement near the end of that one, which was great. I'll tell you the couple of fun ones that I've had. CD1 Republicans. David Schweikert didn't show up for it. Not a shock. I mean, 7-time incumbent. And then CD3 had the Republicans in that one challenging for the Ruben Gallego held seat. Was so great. I mean, these are people who, if they're listening, I apologize to you. You're not going to win these primaries.
No.
David Schweikert's clearly going to win the primary. And obviously one of the folks in CD3 is going to win, but presumably the Democrat's going to win. We got into some really fun conversations there. We got into some really good battles because they were really trying to top the other one to be, in one case, more anti-Schweikert, which was interesting to see because the guy's been, I clearly think these two candidates have voted for him before.
I'm so anti-Schweikert that if elected, I will outlaw the letter S.
One of the candidates started calling him No Show Dave.
Oh, boy.
Which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah.
Because, it's not going to pick up anywhere, but that was great. So I guess I'd say that. I'd say it's just, I'm glad we're still doing them because I think they're valuable. I wish more of the incumbents would take part. I get why they don't, but it's still kind of like, you've been in office for however many years. Let's just lay it on the table. You're going to win the primary anyway. So I would just like to hear from these incumbents.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. And there's always some cynicism out there. Like people always will say cynically to you as an aside, like, oh, these debates don't really matter. And I disagree.
Yeah, I do too.
I do too. I think it gives something for media to look at and report. I think it's important to, a lot of times a debate, particularly presidential debates, big Senate debates, like a lot of voters may not be watching them, but they'll read about it.
Yep.
And that's important. Like that's where you can flush out some issues. And a lot of times somebody's opponent will be able to flush out an issue much better than we can as a reporter, as a journalist. And they can force some things that are important to know as well.
And one other quick thing on this, and I'm involved in it, so I hope this doesn't sound too loaded, but I think there's a new setup this year, which involves potentially, at least online through streaming, you're getting tons of TV stations, radio stations, print outlets around the state because Clean Elections started this new relationship with this Arizona Media Association. So that's been kind of cool because I think what Channel 8's done for years is fantastic. But I think it's great that you can spread it around. AZ Central's carrying it online. I mean, I think it's been, I think that's been a plus because maybe I'm still got, again, I'm going to say naive again, still got this part in my heart to say the more availability you have for people to learn about it, maybe they'll be more informed voters. Yeah. Okay, sorry, now I'm going to get off my pedestal.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like our job is, there's a lot of hate out of the media. There's a lot of criticisms, justified and unjustified. But hopefully, we're giving people the facts that they can then go argue about. But there's the facts that are there. What I hope when we're at our best is what we're doing.
Yeah,
it's much more complicated because there are people who just make up their own facts. But that's a different show, a different time.
The people who don't know the soft side of Dennis Welch, I'm glad we got that in.
Yeah, I know.
Because he's actually an incredibly nice guy. So
yeah, I'm incredibly nice.
You are really,
and very positive. Very positive.
Well, yes, you absolutely are. Colin, is he positive or not?
He wants me to say yes, so
okay.
I'll say yes.
Then say yes. Yeah. Yes.
Better say yes.
Can I get a quick plug in?
Yes, I was going to say we're going to have to wrap this up right now. You've got a podcast. Tell us about it. How can we download it?
Okay, so it's a focus just on CD1, which is there are 6 Democrats trying to take on David Schweikert. And I co-hosted with former congressional nominee Anita Malik. It was her idea. Okay. We had coffee. She said, let's do it. It's called Who's the One?
Mm-hmm. Oh, nice.
So
I see what you did there.
Yeah, so you can find it at Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts.
Whatever.
Same places you'll find Politics Unplugged, starring Dennis Welch. Thanks for having me, man. It's great to see you.
Hey, dude, it was great. Always great catching up with you.
Thanks.
All right, welcome back to the second half of the show. As always, we break things down with Colin, producer extraordinaire.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Thanks for playing along with, thanks with Mr. Goldstein. Love having that guy on.
He was wonderful. He was great.
Love trying to turn the table. But he was turning the tables on me and kept asking me too many questions.
Yes.
It was not
probably forced to have it for him.
Yeah, probably. But it was great to catch up with him, man.
Yes.
What do we want to talk about this week, man? I mean,
well, there's your girl Caitlin Clark.
Oh God.
Which we haven't actually talked that much about.
Apparently, yeah. Again, born and raised in Iowa.
Yeah.
Bleed the yellow, the black and gold.
Yeah. She's now a lightning rod for every Yahoo in the U.S.
Yeah, apparently, she got fouled pretty hard.
Yeah, it was a fairly hard foul. Which then led to the Chicago Tribune, I believe, doing an editorial.
It's because she plays for Chicago, right?
No.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
I'm joking.
I believe the girl who thumped her plays for Chicago.
Okay. Yes.
But yeah, no. They said it would be assault if it were not a sporting event, which led me to think: is the Chicago Tribune familiar with sporting events? Because there are a lot of things that would be assault.
In sports.
Yeah.
In general.
You ever see a football game?
Ever see a boxing match?
Yeah. Can't do those things randomly on the street. It's
MMA.
frowned upon. And okay, it was a hard foul.
Yeah. A cheap shot.
Yeah.
It was definitely a cheap shot.
Yeah. Should have been flagrant tech, whatever. As opposed to what it has turned into, which is this weird referendum on race and all kinds of other things.
Yeah, it's like they lost their freaking minds. People just lost their minds over this. And did you care about the WNBA last year?
Yeah, no, they don't.
2 months ago? 3 months ago?
And the people who are losing their mind are exclusively people who are otherwise unfamiliar with the league and weren't watching this game and aren't watching any game, but they saw a clip and decided to find a way to be angry about it.
Kruger-Dunning effect or Dunning-Kruger effect, man. People get a little bit of information. They think they're an expert.
Yeah.
It's like you don't know shit about this, but that's not going to stop me from having an opinion that I feel strongly about.
Yeah. And the bottom line, the WNBA is a physical league. People don't get that. It's a physical league. People get thumped around in the WNBA.
Yeah.
And she's a rookie getting thumped around. And she's a big-name rookie, and I'm sure there's some element of
big-name
rookie.
Yeah, there's a big-name rookie with a big-time Nike contract.
Yeah.
You think, people don't have, their games with the Indiana Fever, marked on their calendars?
Yeah. But at the same time, physical league, this is how it goes.
Yeah,
she's going to have to adjust.
I just wonder if she even wants people, the defense that, people coming to her defense that she doesn't need or want is what I'm wondering.
No,
It's just going to make it worse.
I'm not wondering about it. No, she does not want. She does not want any of this.
People just want to be aggrieved, right? And they just want something to be angry about right now. And this is like a case in point. It's basketball. She got cheap shotted. So what?
We got an email in the special projects unit from someone who is insisting that someone needed to investigate this and the horrible attacks and how they're so sad and they don't know if they can watch until these savage attacks stop.
This is the first time here.
Yeah.
The I-Team, which you're a producer, you're a producer on too when you're not producing great, extraordinary political programming for the Arizona family. You do the 3 on Your Side stuff.
Yeah.
They wanted you.
Yeah, to look into.
And Gary Harper.
Yeah. Yeah. Gary Harper to take on the WNBA so we can investigate why they're allowing such savagery against the rookie point guard of the Indiana Fever. People have lost their minds.
As much as I'd love to see Gary do that story.
I can hear his voice now. What now?
Could you see him like chasing someone around a WNBA bus? Yes. Like, get back here. No, we got some questions for you.
Yeah, I don't know that I see that happening anytime soon.
No. Yeah. At the end, it's like, hey, what? We saved the WNBA. What?
and like all of this boils down to, it's a hard foul. It's gotten so weird.
It seems like a metaphor for America right now, doesn't it? I mean, it's just like this, anything. It's just like, okay, we're going full tilt.
Yes.
And then you also got that jackwagon Pat McAfee. Is that his name?
Yeah. From ESPN.
Yeah, who like is a big believer in the First Amendment and apparently the Second Amendment. The right to bear arms. Hey-o.
Oh, God. Yes. McAfee known for the sleeveless look. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
He called her a nasty name.
He did.
And said but he meant it in a positive way.
Yes.
So it's like
when he
it's like Colin, I mean this in a possible way, but you're an asshole.
Yeah. Yes.
Like,
yes. He meant to be fully supportive when he called her a white bitch. Yes. Which, like, I mean, I think technically he did, but his point was still monumentally stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why he's on ESPN. I mean,
I saw people wondering if he was going to get in trouble. Is he going to lose his show? Earlier this year, he attacked his boss and talked about how his boss was sabotaging his show. And ESPN fired his boss. Pat McAfee is safe. He's not going down for his take on the WNBA. He attacked his boss and won.
It's just everybody's got to. I just wish people would understand. Like, we don't need opinions on fucking everything.
No, you do not have to have an opinion on everything.
It's okay not to have an opinion on this stuff, especially for things you don't.
Yes.
Like, look, am I going to tell you? Like, I was a big fan of I have not watched much at WNBA. I'm an Iowa Hawkeye fan, and a few years ago, some friends started, sending me clips about this young basketball player. I mean, these things were insane. She's like, she's launching, 3-point shots from the logo, and draining them. It was just like this insane stuff, and it's the reason why I know anything about women's basketball is because of her.
Similarly for me, I'm an Oregon Duck, and it was Sabrina Ionescu who plays for the New York Liberty now. So I've been watching the NBA for a few years now, off and on. I'm not a religious follower of it, but
but when I hear players like Caitlin Clark on Twitter saying like it's a physical league, I believe them because they live it, they play it, and I'm like, okay, I'll just buy into it. I'll take it from the experts. This is what happens.
Yes.
And as somebody who's watched the NBA my whole life, like that kind of shit happens all the time.
Yeah, and it used to happen more. They got tired of it happening so much that it dominated play, and the skill players were limited.
And then they got rid of the Detroit Pistons.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, pretty much, yes. And the New York Knicks under Pat Riley. Mm-hmm. And at some point, the WNBA probably takes steps to cut that down a little.
Yeah.
So your the Caitlin Clarks of the league have a little more room to operate without.
Well,
getting
it's just a
knocked on
bunch
her
of
butt.
dudes in sports media who don't know how to talk about women's sports.
Yes.
Like you and I think just acknowledge we're not experts on
Yeah.
discussing that, but we
Yeah.
are kind of experts in watching like people lose their ever loving minds
Yes.
over this whole thing and making some dumbass points, dumbass statements that are just.
I know. I've been left speechless a few times myself.
I don't know, man. Was it there was a counter like 0 days since something weird happened in the WNBA?
Well, it never got to go too high because they had them play. They had the Fever playing every other day for like the first few weeks of the season. I think they were finishing game 11 when other teams had played like 6 games.
Yeah.
Like this horrible Caitlin Clark barnstorming tour, and they kept losing.
And then I wonder why, like, she isn't exceeding expectations. Like,
Yeah.
A, everybody's gunning for her, and B,
Yes.
you're playing her every night.
You're playing her every night. And she's got some adjustments to make. She's
Yeah.
a rookie
Yeah.
and a rookie with a target on her back. She will be well served to, among other things, not necessarily go down like she's been shot every time there's contact, which
Yeah.
she does a little bit. And she also has that.
Well, what's wrong with that? I love soccer, too.
Well, and she does that like kind of whiny face shrug, look at the ref after every bit of contact.
So
And
she's been
that's-
watching the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah. Yeah. It would serve her well to cut back on that. But like her statements, when asked about these, she seems to be handling it.
Yeah.
great. If other people could handle it as well as she is, they'd be in a better place.
I think so, too. And I'm really happy for Caitlin Clark, WNBA. They're getting more eyeballs on the sport.
Yeah.
Good for them. It's a good product. It's a better product now with Caitlin Clark, and I think this is. I know that racial component is entered in the mix as to why. That's why she's like so popular. Like I don't know. I do know.
I think it's a good chunk of it, but she's also really good.
I also do know that she does things on the basketball court that we don't see many people in basketball, including men, do.
Yeah,
like launching 3-point shots
Yeah.
from the
Yeah,
logo.
her range is terrific.
And there's a uniqueness to it that is going to attract people, just much like
Yes.
Steph Curry when he first got in the league was just launching those incredible 3-point shots and draining them. There's a uniqueness there that is going to draw attention and bring eyeballs to the game. And I hope the league thrives because of it.
One thing that's been sort of entertaining to watch is how the broadcasts need to kind of slowly shift, because the initial games for this year, I was noticing, watching them on ESPN, in the past and the start of this season, there's been a lot of the game is a celebration of women. And they need to kind of start shifting that to, it's a basketball game.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of, when they, like, first game out of the chute, the ESPN A team was, isn't this all magical? Aren't they all great? Let's give them all a big pat on the back. And like the post-game interviews, Holly Rose going, I see you. You were on the bench, but I'm so proud of you. And like, I think while they were, they've been hoping to get a wider audience and waiting for us to show up, and we're here. So it's probably time to treat it like it's a sporting event and less
it's a
like
legit
it's
sport.
a celebration of women.
It's a legit sport, man.
Yes.
I mean, I treat it as such. All right. The other thing, like, we've had some discussions over the past week or two about this, and just bring it up for our listeners here to talk a little bit about this recent documentary.
Yeah.
We got to watch. It was on Max.
It's on Max. STAX, Soulsville, USA, I believe. 4-part documentary on the STAX record label.
Absolutely incredible. And
It
I think
is.
you had like the best breakdown of it. It's like 4 episodes, 2 episodes or this, 2 episodes or that. So if you can explain that.
If you're looking for a great celebration of Black artistic excellence and success, watch episode 1 and episode 3. And if you are more interested in a documentary on white people's ability to completely fuck up anything black people touch artistically, you've got episode 2 and episode 4, which are fairly soul-crushing.
Yeah. No pun intended.
Yeah.
No, it really is.
But it's a brilliant documentary, and just the story of STAX is amazing, and how things came together. And for people who don't know, Stax was the soul label of the 1960s.
They were the Detroit of the South.
Yes.
Like Memphis.
Yes.
Memphis.
Booker T and the MGs, Otis Redding, Isaac Hayes, Rufus Thomas,
Sam and Dave,
Otis
Redding,
William Bell.
Yeah.
These were all Stax artists. And just the original formation of it was nuts. Booker T. Jones, who was one of the great keyboardists of music history, was just a kid they pulled out of class to play on a Rufus Thomas song they were recording.
Yeah.
He was 14, I think they said.
Well, that was the thing. Was amazing. You got to go check this out. Like, most of those acts, particularly early on, are like just neighborhood kids.
Yes.
Just like kids from the neighborhood. Like,
the first soul recording they did for Rufus Thomas, they needed to put together a band. So they grabbed 14-year-old Booker T. Jones out of class at his school down the street. Yeah. And there was a record store attached to the recording studio.
That was making more money than they
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the guys working at the record store was Steve Cropper.
Yeah. If you don't know Steve Cropper, if you've seen the movie Blues Brothers, he's the guitar player in the band The Blues Brothers with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd.
And Booker T and the MGs essentially became the house band for Stax, and it's Booker T. Jones, Steve Cropper, Donald Duck Dunn, and Al Jackson, I think.
Well, that was one of the things that stood out to me. I grew up. I was indolently. I've seen the movie, Blues Brothers a million times. I knew that Steve Cropper and Donald Duck Dunn and all those guys were like legit players and played on a bunch of big stuff. I didn't realize they were the house band for Stax.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this and I'm like, is that Steve? And I'm like, first, is that? But that's Donald Duck Dunn.
And there's something slightly horrifying about people knowing these guys from the Blues Brothers.
Yeah, I know, and it's just like.
But I get it. That was probably my first exposure to who they were too.
Yeah, well, I wasn't born when Stax started, so neither were you.
No, but familiar with the work.
Yeah, very familiar with the work. I mean, like if you. I don't know. Maybe if you're not a big aficionado on a lot of soul music, like the amount of hit records that came from Stax, you'd be surprised. I mean, you'd be stunned. You know them.
Yes,
it's part of like the American pop culture DNA. You know these songs.
Yes, Soul Man by Sam and Dave.
Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, Otis Redding.
Yes.
Green Onions,
which is for my money the greatest instrumental of all. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just part of the DNA. You grow up around it. Like, it's not like people know classical music, but you know Beethoven, whether you know it's Beethoven or not. You've heard it.
Yes.
But you've heard these songs and grown up with these amazing soul classics. And again, like, this tells God, it's such a mixed bag. It's this amazing story.
Yeah.
Of this rise of this record label and this.
And the downfall twice.
The downfalls. I mean, you think the story's done one time and they rebuild it to have some crashing down again,
And one of the parts that was just a kick in the gut is in part two when things look like they couldn't possibly get any worse. They've fallen apart, and no one knows if they, how can we put
Otis
this together?
Redding
what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And then there's a sanitation strike going on in Memphis. Yeah. And you're watching the strike, and it just seems like, God, this can't get any worse. And then one of them says, well, yeah, it was my job to pick up Dr. King and take him over to the Lorraine Motel. And I realized, God, no. No, it turns out it can get exponentially worse.
Because this was after Otis Redding had died in that plane crash.
Yes.
They're like,
Yes, and they'd lost their entire catalog.
And then, by the way, it was my job to pick up Dr. King and go to the Lorraine Hotel.
Because all of them used to hang out at the Lorraine.
Because it was one of the few places that allowed intergrade, that mixed people, whites and blacks, to hang out together.
Yes, which shortly thereafter became famous for something else.
Oh, so sad.
But it's a fabulous, and then so they rebuild it, and then you get the Isaac Hayes era.
Oh.
So after so the rebuilding, you've got Black Moses and theme from Shaft, and it's
the show in Watts was
Wattstack.
Wattstack was.
Yeah.
Yes, if nothing else, watch that and how that came together. That was just absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And I wanted to throw things at my TV at the end.
Yes.
Because I was just like, how could you? And you can go back to STAX now, but it's
Yeah.
it's like a rebuild. They had to rebuild because they tore it all down.
Yeah.
The bastards.
Yeah. 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 But yes, it's on Max, 4-part documentary. I think each part's about an hour.
Yeah.
STAX, STAX,
Yeah.
Soulsville, USA.
Yeah.
Highly recommended if you're into music or just like to watch a good documentary because it's
good
beautifully
story.
done. It's a good story.
Yeah.
They had great footage from it. Worth watching.
Yeah. One other thing, it's like the Otis Redding. I grew up with listening to his music. My mom was really big into blues, soul, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I guess I knew he was young. I didn't realize he was that young. He's
Yeah.
26, man.
Yeah. Yeah. This isn't in the doc, but weird trivial bit
Uh-huh.
on Otis Redding. The night he died, he was supposed to be performing in Madison, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And the show, people had gathered for the show, and the opening act had to announce to the crowd that Otis Redding had just died in a plane crash and wouldn't be there. And the person who made the announcement was the guitarist for the opening act. And the guitarist was Rick Nielsen of Cheap Trick
Wow.
in one of his previous bands.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, go check it out. And again, fan of that kind of music, of soul music, check it out. If you're a fan of just good storytelling, just check it out. I promise
terrific.
it takes you through a roller coaster of emotions.
Yes, it does.
Well, hey, we're going to have to wrap it up right there because I have to shove off and go do an interview right now. All right.
Yeah, go do a
All
little
right.
work.
Good catching up with you this week.
Yep.
Another crazy week in Arizona politics. We'll check you all out. Check in next week.
Yeah. See you next
you
week.
Thanks for listening. You can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, the Google Store, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. See you next time.